Hello, dudes, dudettes, duders, and everyone in between, and welcome to this, not a 1, not a 3, but a review-regal? Nope, you can't blame a man for trying. Hope you got your tea. Let's settle in for this review of the Sirui Anamorphic Micro Four Thirds lenses. Today we're talking about both the 35mm and the 50mm versions. In this review, we'll talk about what these lenses are, what they do well, where they fall short, and how to incorporate them into your workflow. Also, we'll try to answer the biggest question: are they worth the cost of entry? Let's get into it. First, there's one thing we have to get out of the way. We're talking about anamorphic lenses that go for less than $1,000 a pop. So we can really only talk about these lenses, and we can't talk about how they compare to other offerings at the same price point because there aren't any. If you want anamorphic lenses for your Micro Four Thirds camera for less than $1,000, this is it. That said, these are really unique pieces of kit that come with their own strengths and shortcomings, and that's worth discussing. These lenses appeal to a specific market, folks who haven't gotten to play with anamorphics yet because they're so cost prohibitive. This review will focus on the things you should know when making that leap from 16:9 to 235. Also, when you're operating in this price range, there are going to be capability caps on gear. Corners are cut to get the equipment cheap like this, and you should be familiar with those cut corners if you're planning on buying these lenses. Much like the A10 Mini or the Pocket Cinema camera series, I don't condemn these products for the corners cut. I celebrate them for what they do bring to the table. When evaluating gear like this on a cost-performance ratio, they're amazing. But if you evaluate them on performance alone, it's easy to see where they fall short. Speaking of the Pocket Cinema camera series, all of the footage in this video is being shot on Blackmagic Pocket Cinema cameras. All of the anamorphic footage was shot on the 4K model, and the 16:9 footage is a combination of 4K and 6K. This is not a sponsored video. I bought all of the gear off the shelf, and my opinions are mine and mine alone. On to the lenses. What are they? Sirui released two anamorphic Micro Four Thirds lenses, a 50mm and a 35mm. Both range in aperture from 1.8 to 16, they both have a minimum focus distance of 2.8 feet, both have a 67mm filter thread, and both have 10 iris blades. In every way, these are sibling lenses. They go together like peanut butter and jelly or Pam Beasley and Jim. The biggest difference between the two is the price, with the 50 coming in at $700 and the 35 costing $800. What's incredible about them is pretty straightforward. They're anamorphic lenses for under $1,000, and you can pop them onto your Blackmagic or GH5 and start shooting right away. And the footage looks way more expensive than it should. But at that price range, there are going to be some downsides. First, neither lens ever feels pin sharp. Even when stopped down to 16, it doesn't feel like the sharpest lens I've ever used. But it's never so bad that I felt a shot was compromised. The other major downside is that they don't sit tight on the camera. The 50 locks into place, but the 35 does not. You can take the 35 off of the camera without having to push the release button, and that is a bit unsettling. It would be more so if I thought that I'd ever use these lenses as run-and guns, but that's unlikely. In general, when filming anamorphic, I tend to move a bit slower and with more intent. I can't imagine using these for event or news videography where you need to be moving super quickly from shot to shot. To be fair, I can't imagine a news agency hiring me for my anamorphic lenses anyway, so it's kind of a moot point. But if you find yourself with the time to frame the shots, you can get some really good results from these lenses. The footage you're seeing here is day one of owning them. We slapped them on the Pocket 4K and headed out to the mountains. It's easy to imagine that with a bit of lighting, you'd be able to get some really incredible footage in a studio environment. When you're out in nature, it feels closer to Lord of the Rings footage than I've ever gotten, and if that's not what you're into, there's a distance between us that may never be bridged. Of course, if you're looking at anamorphic lenses, the question comes up: how are the flares? Both lenses have over 10 elements, so you can get some good flares from them, and they feel reliably anamorphic. It doesn't feel explosively gorgeous. The lens flares feel like everything else about these lenses. It's the cheap version of the most expensive version. While that may seem like a dig, it's not. The expensive version is often prohibitively expensive. These don't look or feel like Cooke anamorphic lenses, but they are thousands of dollars cheaper. Flare connoisseurs will likely agree that these are good, but still nothing compared to a 55mm m4 II lens fully opened up. And they're right. Where are my flare connoisseurs at? Leave a comment below. But will these lenses bring added value to the client work? That's a tougher question. It seems unlikely for the current batch of projects we've got going. I imagine we'll know in a year or so if these lenses are appealing. None of our clients are interested in anamorphic lenses, whether that's because they've never had access to them or because they actually, factually do not care about anamorphics has yet to be revealed. Now that it's an option, will any of our current clients opt in? Will these lenses attract new clients specifically for their capabilities? I don't know. Whew, the suspense. But it does raise the question, how do we get our clients excited about this addition to the kit? What are these lenses for anyway? It's easy to tell what they aren't. They aren't lenses for vlogging. They've got no autofocus and the minimum focus distance is about 3 feet. So you won't be in front of the camera while you're operating it. They aren't really useful for social media either, especially Instagram, as you want to be at least phone friendly if not vertical friendly when shooting. So a 235 image would actually be bad for our clients who need us to shoot horizontal and vertical at the same time. These are cinema lenses for visual storytellers. Personally, I love anamorphic lenses. One of the greatest feelings of my career was screening a film that we shot anamorphic in a theater and watching the audience turn their heads to look as things happened. It's just a cool experience for the audience and for the filmmaking team, and for me, it's worth the added trouble to allow that level of engagement. Speaking of trouble, let's talk about camera setup and post-production. We shoot on Blackmagic Pocket Cinema cameras, which are a perfect pairing for these lenses. The Pocket Cinema line is without a doubt the camera body most focused on giving you a cine-camera experience at a prosumer price point. In much the same way that the Pocket Cinema cameras are an only-in-class proposition, these lenses fill a similarly specific market gap. Short report, the anamorphics pair perfectly with Blackmagic's 4K Micro Four Thirds camera. Setting up the camera for anamorphic filming is very simple. First, make sure that your Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera is up to date. Go to the menu and straight away ignore the 2.8K anamorphic setting. That is not the one that you want. Tap Monitor and then tap Both. Go to Menu 2 and at the bottom you'll find 1.33 anamorphic D-Squeeze. Turn that on and the camera will de-squeeze the image for you. Now, when you get the footage out of the camera, it will be 16:9. So when you go into your editing environment, you'll have to do a couple of extra steps when ingesting the footage. In this video, we'll look at those steps for Premiere and Resolve. Sorry, Final Cutters, it's just not my area of expertise. The first thing to understand about Resolve is that it doesn't have a 1.33 D-Squeeze, only 1.3, for whatever reason. Numbers like these are important because there is some math involved in the process. And the math goes like this. Start a new project and then go into project settings. We're going to change the timeline resolution to match the output resolution if the pixels were square. So go to your original footage and find the horizontal resolution. In this case, 4096. Multiply that number by 1.3 and you'll get 5324. I always round down when doing this math because rounding down will crop the image and rounding up will create pixels without information. For the vertical resolution, just leave it as is. Click Save and then you can import the footage. When it lands, it won't be anamorphic. Select your clips, right-click them, and go to Clip Attributes. Change the pixel aspect ratio to 1.3 and you're ready to bring them into your timeline. From there, you can edit and color correct as if it were regular old footage. Premiere is, thankfully, a bit simpler. Import your footage, same as Resolve. Right-click on your clips and go to Modify, Interpret Footage. And then conform your pixel aspect ratio to 1.33 and your footage will be good. Creating a timeline that matches your footage is as simple as dragging and dropping a clip onto the Create New icon. From there, you're off to the races. Just a friendly reminder, this is all time of publishing stuff. If there are new features across the software or hardware, please leave a comment below. Blackmagic in particular is really good about updating their software and firmware, and it wouldn't surprise me if the process I just described isn't improved upon before long. So now you know what the lenses are and what they aren't, what they're good for and where they fall short. The big question is, are they worth the cost of entry? For me, it's a no-brainer. I've dreamt of having access to lenses like these for years, and now I'm holding them in my greasy little mitts. If you're a video blogger or you publish mostly to Instagram, I don't know if these are a good fit. Sure, they're fun, but are they really practical? Certainly not for solo shooting, and they aren't run-and-gun lenses. They're Cine lenses for Cine cameras. They just happen to exist at a unique price point. I can say with absolute certainty, these will never leave my kit. Even if I were to own a full set of PL mount Cooke anamorphic lenses one day, I'd keep these with the Pocket Cinema camera because why not? They're stupid affordable and they're anamorphic lenses. Looks like an anamorphic, flares like an anamorphic. By golly, they must be anamorphics. I wish I could give you a straight answer right here and now about the value these lenses may or may not bring to your films. I can't. I've only had them a couple of days, and I have no idea if they'll open any doors for our business. If I don't do a follow-up review in a year, assume that I love them and use them, but haven't made any money or made any clients happy with them. If you enjoyed this review, please like, comment, and subscribe. If you have any questions about shooting anamorphic, ask them! Thank you so much for tuning in, and please do not storm the Senate. Bye!